Smith.
Great Western Railway fares are 2.2 times higher than those of European operators for similar lengths. Rail users in my constituency will be all too familiar with this reality, regularly paying more than £100 for a return ticket to London. Since the Labour government came into power, we have seen the power of the unions once again, with eye-watering salary increases yet no expectations to improve productivity. This means that on the line down to Devon, contracts were not changed when salaries were increased. This would have cleared up the mess that is the lack of 7-day-a-week contracts. Try travelling to Westminster on a Sunday, Madam Deputy Speaker. The creation of Great British Railways is being held up as a panacea to any such issues with our railway. Having served the last year or so on the Transport Select Committee, where we have been tracking the progress of these plans, I remain unconvinced by the bill. I gave my maiden speech during the passage of the Passenger Railway Services Bill, the mechanism through which we have reached today, the bill which enabled the renationalisation of the railway. What I said then about that bill remains true as we debate this. It is a bill that seems to indicate ideological time travel back to the nationalised railway system of the past and a mistaken belief that state-run institutions are the answer to all our woes. Our railway system needs to drive forward into the middle of the 21st century and not creep backwards to the 1970s. As a child of the 80s, I remember the old British Rail. Aside from the excitement of travelling on a 125 between Plymouth and my grandparents in Somerset, I do not recall it being any better than the privatised system we have today. In the development of Great British Rail, the government must work with industry. There are real concerns that without a strong independent rail regulator, this bill will squeeze out private investment. Great British Railways, which will become the second biggest employer in the country, hardly an agile organisation, will be calling the shots, and as a result, the state-owned operator will be chosen over private sector rivals. The Office for Rail and Roads sees its power significantly altered, some might say reduced even, by this bill. It is arguable that they lose their teeth, and I would simply urge the government to keep passengers front and centre of this bill, and I'm not sure that the quango regulator that they're setting up is in passengers' best interests. Private investment extends to rail freight, which is not only competing with state-owned operators, but also with road haulage. The Rail Freight Group warns that the bill risks driving the sector into decline, costing the UK economy up to £2.5 billion and adding 7 million additional HGV movements to the UK road network. Whilst the government has committed to introducing a statutory duty on GBR to promote the use of rail freight supported by an overall growth target, I would be grateful if the Minister would take the opportunity to clarify how this duty will operate in practice and how it will ensure that GBR does not give preferential treatment to state-owned operators, and where the bill places freight in the hierarchy of railway line use is critical. The bill is not yet explicit on this, which is concerning. Now, many members of the House... I will give way.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. I wonder whether she's concerned, as I am, how ministers will square their kind of responsibility to the trade unions, who of course fund the party opposite, and that of the producer interest, and whether she has any reflections on their past failure to get that balance right.
Well, I thank my honourable friend, and actually he's raised a very interesting point, which is that I think the very good conditions that private companies have been forced into by trade unions are going to end up cheapied across to these state employees, and ultimately the best conditions will be the ones that get delivered to the most, all in that huge new employer. Now, many members from across this House have highlighted the importance of connecting underserved areas, and nowhere in the country is this case more powerfully made than in the South West. So before closing, I would like to highlight to the Minister 2 examples affecting my constituency, both featured in my maiden speech, so I know he is familiar with them, and I will continue to champion them, as well as the need to secure the railway line at Dawlish. Now, many cross-country trains currently pass through Ivy Bridge Station without stopping because the platform is too short. That forces local people to travel by bus or car to Plymouth, Totnes or Tiverton, making rail travel far less convenient. Now, I've secured with local stakeholders the funding for the extension to have a feasibility study, but ultimately that modest project would make a huge difference to our community and is something I hope is not hindered by this bill. Now, I'm also committed to securing a Plymouth Metro, including plans for a station in Plympton in my constituency. Plympton's 30,000 residents have been without a station for more than 60 years, and it would be transformative for that part of my patch. Now, both Plympton and Ivybridge have many residents working at Devonport Naval Base and the growing defence hubs in Turnchapel and Langage. The government has promised billions of pounds to the city as part of a defence deal, but if that deal does not include funding for transport, what is the point? So I urge the government to ensure it is joined up in delivering the railway the city and surrounding communities need to deliver on the defence role the government wants. I support the efforts to improve our railway and bring ticket prices down. However, a simple return to a nationalised British rail is not the answer. As Conservatives, we understand the importance of retaining a strong role for the public sector through open access, protecting rail freight, improving efficiency